we want to now trace the clamor for teachers' pay over the years and just take a look at the history of their clamor for better pay and better remuneration for themselves. Now, in Kenya, the first strike that took place was in 1962, and this was done even before independence. Now, since then, there have been over 12 nationwide strikes across the country. But we want to highlight some of the key ones, and this is where it all began, 1997. Many will remember that the person at the helm of the Kenyan National Union of Teachers at the time was Ambrose Adongo. They were asking for 300% pay rise at the time. They were led by, like we said, the late vocal trade unionist Ambrose Adongo, and this was famously known, for those that will remember, in Kenya as the Adongo holidays. They lasted quite a bit of time. Now, it's important to note that 1997 was an election year. And so, of course, a lot of politics got muddled up into the teachers' demand for a pay rise. Then President Daniel Arap Moi said this was something that was orchestrated by the opposition. However, a president's committee sat down, a deal was reached, and the teachers returned to work. But later, a year later, and I want you to note as we go ahead the months, the specific months. It's quite strategic when they choose to go on strike. So October 1997, a year later, in 1998, the teachers were back at it again, saying that deal of 1997 was not met. The pay that they were promised was not given, and of course they then went on strike again in October 1998. Let's fast forward to, again, note the month of October 2002. This strike lasted 2 weeks. Again, the teachers made reference to the pay deal in 1997 at that point. The union went on strike then. The ministry at the time for education, Henry Koskei, tried to take some tough measures by threatening to sack all teachers. Of course, this did not go down well. Learning was paralyzed for 2 weeks. Now, in January 2009, this is what was known as the mother of all strikes. 8 million children were affected. By this time, of course, free primary education had kicked in, so you can see the numbers there quite high. This time, the teachers were demanding 19 billion shillings, but the government promised them 17.3 in phases because they said the economy couldn't handle giving them 19 billion shillings all at once. Now, by 2011, the whole idea of free primary education and the numbers of students going into the classroom continued to pile pressure on the teachers. And so by this time, if you recall, Mwai Kibaki had, on coming into power, instituted free primary education in line with the Millennium Development Goal of free or universal primary education. And so another strike then, of course, September 2011, and that's what they were lamenting there. Inadequate staffing. Teachers were handling classes of up to 50 students at a time or more. Of course, this was due to the free primary education. Now, 2 years later, and remember we're highlighting the big ones. 2 years later, July 2013, teachers went on strike for 24 days. Again, the 1997 pay deal, the teachers have continued to say, has not been met to date. The industrial court ruled this strike illegal. The chair, whom we will have today in just a short while, Wilson Sossion, was arrested and charged. He was able to pay for his bail, but the union was charged 6 million shillings for contempt. We now come to this year, that's the year 2015, when the teachers went on strike demanding the 200% pay increase. The two-week strike was later called off. The teachers went into arbitration with the Teachers Service Commission, and of course the industrial court was then able to resolve the pay dispute. That is the figure you're hearing today of 50 to 60% increase, which brings us to the court ruling today from the Supreme Court. Now, in a government report that was released earlier this year by the Cabinet Secretary Kaimenyi of Education, he lamented the teachers' strike. Now, these are some of the comparisons that he gave of teachers' pay in the region, just for comparison's sake. Now, he says in 2013, apparently, teachers were earning almost double what their compatriots were earning in other countries like Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda. So here are some figures for you. This is from the government. They were saying in 2013, Kenyan teachers earned between 27,000 and 200,000. So that's from the lowest to round about the highest at that level. Now, they say the Tanzanians, the average is about 13,800, far less than 27,000. If you take a look at some other figures for other countries, Uganda is one of them, an average of 9,384 compared to the 27,000 shillings of Kenyan teachers earned by Kenyan teachers. And in Rwanda, that average is 8,372. This is according to a government report by Professor Jacob Kaimenyi there, just talking about how Kenyan teachers are perhaps earning more than their compatriots and saying their continued clamor for an increased pay is not fair. So, what happens next? That is a question we will be asking Wilson Sossion, who's the Secretary General of the Kenya National Union of Teachers there, and we'll be tackling some of those issues as we continue with our focus on education in Kenya.